What to do if your pastor does not support prophecy. Now, I go to different places, different conferences, I go and speak at different events, put on different courses, and the number one question I get asked more than anything else, in fact it becomes almost predictable, the number one question I get asked is, my pastor doesn't support prophecy, what should I do? And it got me thinking, well, actually, how widespread is the problem? If people are saying this, if this is the common question I get asked in just the circles that I move in, well, is that a little bit indicative of how widespread that issue actually is? Or pastors not being massively supportive of personal prophecy, pastors not massively engaging in the prophetic in any deep and meaningful way, prophets not really being able to function massively in the church. Is there some conspiracy amongst pastors against the prophetic? You know, how widespread is this problem? And it is a problem because the amount of people that are speaking to me about it show an indication of how big this problem is. So I'm not going to address why that's a problem, but I'm going to address what you can do about that problem. So the first thing we need to address is the pastor, are they unsupportive of prophecy as a whole, or are they just unsupportive of you? Basically, have you caused problems in a bad way? You can cause problems in a good way, but have you just basically caused problems in a bad way? Are you the problem? Have you been so wacky and so out there with your prophetic words? Have you just been just completely off of the mark in your prophetic words? Have you just been completely just causing so much issues, so many problems, so much problems for a pastor, so much problems for the church, that a pastor doesn't really want to engage in your prophetic ministry because basically he's okay with prophetic as a whole, but he has a problem, or she has a problem with you. It says in Ephesians to have the spirit of revelation and the spirit of wisdom, and we need both. We need revelation and wisdom, and you can be flowing in the prophetic but without any form of revelation. And basically the problems with a pastor are basically problems of your own making. That is a possible issue. So assuming that's not the case, assuming that it's not to do with you, the pastor is just doesn't blanket ban on prophecy, or is not massively supportive of prophecy or understanding of prophecy, what to do about it. So the first thing I would say would be develop a relationship with the pastor. Christianity is all about fellowship. We're in fellowship with one another. And so my first thing would be to go to your pastor and talk to your pastor, sit down and have a cup of tea with them and just be honest. Let out there, say, I want to have an honest discussion about prophecy. Try to find out, well, what does the pastor think about prophecy? Where is it coming from theologically? Where is it coming from biblically? Where is it coming from pastorally? Just speak. Build that relationship with a pastor. Don't come across as judgmental, high and mighty. Just try and understand his point of view, and then say what you think. Build that relationship with a pastor. Maybe a pastor hasn't been exposed to the prophetic, and so if a pastor starts to trust you, if he's got your ear, if he starts to trust you, if he starts to, or she, could be a pastor, could be he or she, but if they don't trust you, if they don't understand where it's coming from, if they think, oh, what's he going to say now? Build that relationship. Build that relationship. Build that fellowship with a pastor. Get to know them. Let them get to know you. It's all based out of fellowship. It's all based out of relationship. So develop a good, healthy relationship with your pastor would be my first suggestion. Secondly, maybe sometimes you need to just go little. Sometimes prophetic people kind of go at it full force and they throw absolutely everything in it, and they go quite extreme and they really just let rip in their prophetic words. Sometimes actually just take a step back and think, okay, I'm going to say this prophetic word with a bit more wisdom. I'm going to make this prophetic word feel a little bit in the early stages, a little bit safe. Now, the prophetic isn't about being safe. Obviously, the prophetic can be about rocking the boat, obviously, but ignoring that or putting that to one side for the time being, you need to develop a track record. And that's what I say, just playing a little bit safe, dialing it down a little bit so you can get a track record, so that the pastor starts to trust you, starts to see that when you give prophetic words, or when you give prophetic words one-on-one, they're actually good quality prophetic words. There's fruit behind these prophetic words that you're sharing. These prophetic words are bearing fruit in people's lives. You're building a bit of a track record. So sometimes it may be wise or prudent to go a little bit slowly instead of going full force, full in there, rocking the boat, being dangerous, shaking things up a little bit. Yeah, there's a place for that, absolutely. And absolutely that's what the prophetic does. But sometimes you need to exercise wisdom and get a track record. Build relationship with other people in the church. Thirdly, has God actually called you to that church? Has God called you to be part of that community, part of that family? If God has, then maybe you are the answer to the prophetic in that church. Maybe God wants you in that church so you can actually unlock the door to the prophetic, so you can start to grow a prophetic community, so you can start to see that church having a community of the prophetic. If you want to continue to develop and grow in the prophetic, and if you can't do that in your church, then you're going to have to find somewhere else to let that prophetic flow. Because if it doesn't flow out, it will either start to wither and die, or you start to become incredibly frustrated and agitated and start to not be any good. If it's not flowing outward, it's just going to internalize it. So you need to have a constant stream of flowing out. So find a prophetic community, whether that's a community or people that you know, or whether it's an online community. As a ministry, we have online prophetic communities. We have prophetic activation groups that run regularly every week. We have other prophetic intercession events that runs every week. So we've got online stuff. If you want to join us, then you can do, or find another group to join online, or plug physically into a group. But it's important to be part of another prophetic community, or part of a community of prophets, to help stimulate you. Iron sharpens iron. You need to get around like-minded people, because if not, if you're in isolation, it's not going to do you much good, and it will possibly lead to frustration and annoyance and anger and all sorts of stuff. You need to let the prophetic out. If it's not going to go out, it's going to internalise and will do you damage and won't do you any good, or the propheticness will just wither up and will start to put a block on it. A further thing you sort of need to consider is, are you dealing with any spirits of control, spirits of legalism, spirits of religiosity, controlling spirits, maybe even Jezebel spirits in operation within the church? You need to be aware of these factors as well, because this is what you could be coming up against. You could be coming up against a controlling spirit where everything needs to be controlled, where the supernatural needs to be controlled, where the flow of the worship needs to be controlled, where the speaking and what you speak about, what the preaching takes place is controlled. Everything is controlled, so even the prophetic needs to be controlled. If you come up against controlling pastors, controlling elders, controlling leadership, people that are very controlling and like to control everything, the prophetic will find it hard to float in that environment. Same with legalism and religiosity, and even worse, it's a Jezebel spirit in operation within the church, because Jezebel targets the prophetic and silences them, and goes out to, in worst cases, murder the prophetic. Not literally, but spiritually. So you need to be aware of, is there a spirit that is in operation within the church that is causing the pastor not to be responsive of prophecy? And if it is a spirit like this, when you start praying, you start interceding and asking God for wisdom. That's why being part of another prophetic community outside of the church is helpful, because you can bounce ideas, you can speak to them about the problems that are in your church, and what do you think? Do you think that you can bounce ideas? I think it's a legalistic spirit within the church. What do you think? And you can explain. So you need to be aware of this. So that's why you need to pray, you need to intercede. Now, as I said, there could be lots of reasons why the prophetic isn't welcomed on it in your church. That could be a whole other video. Now, this is basically how you deal with it. What is your response if prophetic isn't welcomed in the church? Well, speak to your pastor. Get to know the pastor, build fellowship, build relationship with your pastor, build trust with your pastor, build trust with the congregation, develop a track record, get people to see the fruit of the prophetic, get yourself plugged into the prophetic community outside of a church, beware of the spirits that could be in operation within the church, and has God called you to be part of that church? If not, go somewhere else. And if He's called you to stay, then you need to battle and work with God in that. So, I hope you found this helpful. If you have, then please subscribe, please share to someone who might find this helpful, and I will talk to you next time.